Grace stared in disbelief at the notice from the county auditor's office. Her HOA-issued property access code had been flagged as misuse of power. Panic surged through her chest as she realized her fight against the corrupt HOA board was only just beginning. With her home and family at stake, Grace knew she had to expose the truth and take down the HOA's reign of tyranny, no matter the cost. Grace slammed the auditor's letter onto the kitchen counter, her hands trembling. This is outrageous. How dare they cancel my access code and accuse me of misusing it? Her husband, Michael, hurried over, brows furrowed with concern. What's going on? What did they say? The county auditor flagged my HOA access code as misuse of power, Grace spat, pacing the kitchen. Now they're threatening to fine us or worse if I try to enter our own neighborhood. Michael's face fell. But you've been using that code for years to get in and out. Why would they suddenly have a problem with it? Grace's eyes narrowed. Because I've been vocal about the HOA board's shady dealings. They're trying to silence me. She clenched her fists. Well, I'm not going down without a fight. Rushing to her laptop, Grace furiously typed, searching for any information on the county auditor's office and the HOA's connections. Michael hovered nearby, biting his lip. What are you going to do? He asked quietly. I'm going to expose their corruption, Grace declared, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The HOA thinks they can push me around, but they have no idea who they're dealing with. As the evening wore on, Grace's research painted an increasingly disturbing picture. The HOA board president, Stanley Wilkins, had deep ties to the county auditor's office. Suspicious campaign contributions, shady real estate deals, it all pointed to a web of corruption. Michael watched Grace's expression harden with each new discovery. This is worse than we thought, she murmured, her voice laced with determination. They're using the county to silence anyone who dares to challenge them. Slamming the laptop shut, Grace met Michael's gaze. I'm going down to the auditor's office first thing tomorrow. They're going to hear me out, whether they like it or not. Michael reached out, grasping her hand. I'm with you, Grace. We'll get to the bottom of this, no matter what it takes. A steely resolve filled Grace's eyes. This ends now. The HOA's reign of terror is over. The next morning, Grace marched into the county auditor's office, Michael trailing behind. The receptionist eyed them warily as Grace approached the counter. I need to speak with whoever is in charge of the HOA access code issue, she demanded, slamming the letter down on the desk. The receptionist glanced at the document, then back at Grace. Do you have an appointment? No, but this can't wait, Grace insisted. My family's home is at stake here. The receptionist hesitated, then gestured towards a door. Have a seat. I'll see if Mr. Wilkins is available. Grace's eyes narrowed. Wilkins? As in the HOA board president? The receptionist offered an apologetic shrug. I'm afraid that's all the information I can provide. Please have a seat. Exchanging a tense look with Michael, Grace reluctantly moved to the waiting area, her foot tapping impatiently. After what felt like an eternity, the door swung open, and a tall, well-dressed man strode out. Mrs. Lawson, how nice of you to join us, Stanley Wilkins said smoothly, a thin smile on his face. Please come in. Grace marched past him, Michael close behind. Wilkins ushered them into a plush office, closing the door with a soft click. Now, what seems to be the problem? Wilkins asked, settling into a leather chair. Gripping the letter, Grace leaned forward. You know exactly what the problem is. My HOA access code has been flagged as misuse of power, and now I can't even enter my own neighborhood. Wilkins raised a hand. Yes, the county auditor did bring that to my attention. Quite a troubling situation, I must say. Troubling, Grace scoffed. This is an abuse of power, plain and simple. The HOA is using the county to silence me because I've been speaking out against your corruption. Wilkins' expression darkened. Corruption. My dear, I assure you, the HOA board is merely trying to maintain order and uphold the community's standards. Standards? Grace spat. You're using these standards to line your own pockets and bully anyone who dares to challenge you. Wilkins' eyes narrowed. I'm afraid I don't appreciate your tone, Mrs. Lawson. Perhaps we should take a step back and discuss this in a more civil manner. Grace slammed her hand on the desk. There's nothing civil about what you're doing. You're abusing your power, and I won't stand for it any longer. Wilkins leaned back, his expression calculating. Very well. If you insist on this confrontational approach, then I'm afraid we have no choice but to escalate the matter. Grace felt Michael's hand on her arm, a silent plea for her to calm down. But the fire in her chest refused to be extinguished. Escalate all you want, Wilkins, she growled. I'm not going anywhere until you restore my access code and put an end to this corruption. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Grace knew she had crossed a line, but she refused to back down. This was a fight she couldn't afford to lose. Wilkins leaned back in his chair, his gaze unwavering. Mrs. Lawson, I must say, your persistence is admirable, if a bit misguided. Grace clenched her jaw, resisting the urge to lash out. Misguided. You're the one abusing your power and using the county to do your dirty work. Wilkins raised a hand. Now, let's not make this personal. I'm simply trying to uphold the rules and regulations set forth by the HOA. Rules and regulations? Grace scoffed. This has nothing to do with rules. It's about you and your cronies lining your pockets at the expense of the community. Wilkins' expression darkened. I would kindly ask that you refrain from making such baseless accusations. The HOA has always acted in the best interest of the residents. Best interest. Grace leaned forward, her eyes blazing. Tell that to the elderly couple who were fined thousands of dollars for having a cracked sidewalk. Or the family who was threatened with foreclosure because they couldn't afford the ridiculous monthly fees. Wilkins held up a hand. Those were isolated incidents, I assure you. The HOA has a responsibility to maintain property values and ensure a certain standard of living. At the expense of basic human decency, Grace shook her head in disgust. You're nothing but a tyrant, Wilkins, and I won't rest until I expose the truth. Wilkins studied her for a moment, his lips curling into a sardonic smile. My dear, you seem to be under the impression that you can just waltz in here and demand that we restore your access code. I'm afraid it doesn't work that way. Grace felt her heart sink as the realization dawned on her. You're not going to help me, are you? Wilkins leaned back, clasping his hands together. I'm afraid not. You see, the county auditor has determined that your use of the access code was a clear violation of our community bylaws. And as the HOA president, it is my duty to enforce those bylaws, no matter how unpleasant it may be. Grace's mind raced, desperately searching for a way to break through Wilkins' stone-cold facade. But that's not fair. You're using the county to punish me for speaking out against your corruption. Wilkins shrugged. Life isn't always fair, Mrs. Lawson. Perhaps if you had been more cooperative and less confrontational, we could have found a way to resolve this amicably. Grace felt Michael's hand on her arm, a silent plea to keep her cool. But the fire in her chest refused to be extinguished. This isn't over, Wilkins, she growled. I'll find a way to expose the truth, no matter what it takes. Wilkins' eyes narrowed. I'd be careful if I were you, Mrs. Lawson. You're playing a dangerous game, and the consequences could be quite severe. Grace held his gaze, her determination unwavering. Bring it on. I'm not going anywhere. As Grace and Michael left the county auditor's office, a heavy silence fell between them. The air was thick with tension, the weight of their failed confrontation hanging over them like a storm cloud. I can't believe they're getting away with this, Grace muttered, her fingers clenching into fists. Wilkins is nothing but a power-hungry tyrant, and the county is in his pocket. Michael gently placed a hand on her shoulder. I know you're frustrated, but we can't give up. There has to be a way to fight this. Grace shook her head, her expression clouded with worry. I don't know, Michael. Wilkins made it pretty clear that he's not going to back down. And if the county is on his side, we're up against a wall. They walked in silence for a few blocks, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Michael spoke up, his voice soft but resolute. What if we take this to the media? Expose the corruption and get the community on our side. Grace paused, considering the idea. The media? That's actually not a bad idea. Her eyes lit up with a newfound determination. If we can get the story out there, maybe the public pressure will force the HOA and the county to back down. Michael nodded, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Exactly. And if we can rally the other residents, show them how the HOA is abusing its power, maybe we can force some real change. Grace felt a surge of energy coursing through her veins. You know what? That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take this fight to the people and show Wilkins and his cronies that they can't push us around anymore. Grabbing Michael's hand, Grace led the way back to their car, her mind already whirling with plans and strategies. This wasn't just about her access code anymore. It was about standing up for the entire community and exposing the truth, no matter the cost. As they drove home, Grace couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they had a shot at taking down the HOA's reign of terror. And if they succeeded, it would be a victory for everyone who had suffered under the board's oppressive rule. Grace's determination hardened. She was ready to go to war, and she wouldn't stop until justice was served. The next morning, Grace and Michael wasted no time. They gathered every piece of evidence they could find, documents, emails, recordings, and began to put together a plan to expose the HOA's corruption. Okay, we need to get this story in front of as many people as possible, Grace said, pacing the living room. Local news outlets, community blogs, social media, anything to get the word out. Michael nodded, typing furiously on his laptop. I'm already reaching out to a few reporters I know from the local paper. They've been looking for a big story like this for a while. Grace paused, a determined glint in her eye. Good. And we can't forget the other residents. If we can get them on our side, it'll put even more pressure on the HOA and the county. I'm way ahead of you, Michael replied, offering her a small smile. I've set up a community meeting for tonight. We need to rally the troops and get them fired up to fight back. Grace felt a surge of pride and gratitude. Michael, you're amazing, you know that. He reached out and squeezed her hand. We're in this together, Grace. I'm not going to let them bully you or our family without a fight. With renewed energy, they set to work, strategizing and preparing for the community meeting. Grace knew that this was their best chance to take down the HOA's corrupt regime, and she wasn't about to let it slip through her fingers. As the sun began to set, the couple made their way to the community center, their arms laden with documents and materials. Grace could feel the nervous energy in the air as the other residents trickled in, their faces etched with concern and frustration. When the meeting began, Grace stepped up to the podium, her gaze sweeping across the crowd. Thank you all for being here tonight, she started, her voice strong and unwavering. I know you're all feeling the weight of the HOA's oppressive rule, and I'm here to tell you that we're not going to take it anymore. The room erupted in a chorus of cheers and applause, and Grace felt a surge of adrenaline course through her veins. They've used the county auditor's office to try and silence me, but we're not going to let them get away with it. We're going to fight back, and we're going to win. As Grace laid out the evidence of the HOA's corruption, the residents' faces morphed from disbelief to righteous anger. By the time she finished, the room was alive with a palpable sense of determination. Who's with me? Grace shouted, raising her fist in the air. The response was deafening, as the crowd erupted in a thunderous roar of support. Grace knew in that moment that they had the power to take down the HOA's reign of terror, no matter the cost. The community meeting was a resounding success, galvanizing the residents into a united front against the HOA's corruption. Grace and Michael worked tirelessly to channel the newfound energy, organizing protests, media campaigns, and a legal strategy to challenge the HOA's actions. "We need to hit them on every front," Grace said, poring over documents with a team of local lawyers. The county auditor's office, the HOA board, the property management company, they're all connected, and we have to take them all down. The lawyers nodded, their brows furrowed in concentration. This is a complex web of corruption, but we've got the evidence to expose it. The key is staying coordinated and keeping the pressure on. Grace took a deep breath, her mind racing with 1,000 different plans and contingencies. Okay, here's what we're going to do. In the days that followed, the community's outcry against the HOA grew louder and more persistent. Residents flooded social media with their stories of abuse and harassment, while Grace and Michael worked tirelessly to get the local media's attention. Their efforts paid off when a local news station decided to investigate the scandal, sending a team of reporters to interview the residents and dig into the HOA's records. "This is it, Michael," Grace said, her heart racing as the news crew set up their equipment. "If we can get this story out there, it could be the turning point we need." Michael squeezed her hand, offering a reassuring smile. "We've got this, Grace. The truth is on our side, and the community is behind us." As the cameras started rolling, Grace stepped forward, her voice clear and unwavering, as she laid out the damning evidence against the HOA and the county auditor's office. The news segment aired that evening, and the response was immediate. Outraged residents flooded the HOA's phone lines and social media pages, demanding immediate action. The county auditor's office was inundated with calls and emails, as the public clamored for an investigation into the alleged corruption. Grace watched the chaos unfold with a mixture of relief and trepidation. They had taken the first step, but she knew that the fight was far from over. "This is just the beginning," she said to Michael, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We're not stopping until we bring these people down and restore justice to our community." Michael nodded, his hand finding hers in a gesture of unwavering support. "Whatever it takes, Grace. We're in this together, all the way." As the sun set on the day, Grace couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. The tide was turning, and she was more determined than ever to see this through to the end. The media coverage sparked a firestorm of outrage and scrutiny, putting immense pressure on the HOA and the county auditor's office. Grace and Michael had tapped into a well of pent-up frustration within the community, and the residents were more than ready to fight back. In the weeks that followed, the legal team worked tirelessly to build their case, combing through mountains of evidence and coordinating with local officials and watchdog groups. Meanwhile, the community rallied, organizing protests, fundraisers, and awareness campaigns to keep the spotlight on the scandal. "They're feeling the heat, I can tell," Grace said, scanning the latest news reports. "The HOA board is starting to crack, and the county auditor is on the defensive." Michael nodded, a determined gleam in his eyes. "Good. It's about time they face the consequences of their actions." As the legal battle intensified, Grace and Michael found themselves at the center of a media maelstrom. They granted interviews, spoke at community events, and tirelessly advocated for the cause, fueled by a deep sense of purpose and the unwavering support of their neighbors. Then, one day, a breakthrough. The legal team uncovered a trove of damning evidence, including records of bribery, illegal campaign contributions, and the county auditor's direct involvement in the HOA's shady dealings. "This is it, Grace," Michael said, his voice trembling with excitement. "We've got them dead to rights. There's no way they can wriggle out of this." Grace's heart raced as she reviewed the documents, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. "Finally, justice is within our reach. It's time to take these bastards down." Armed with the new evidence, the legal team filed a comprehensive lawsuit against the HOA, the county auditor's office, and the individuals involved in the corruption. The media coverage intensified, with national outlets picking up the story and shining a spotlight on the scandal. As the case made its way through the courts, Grace and Michael found themselves at the center of a growing movement. Residents from neighboring communities reached out, eager to lend their support and share their own stories of HOA abuse. "This isn't just about our neighborhood anymore," Grace said, addressing a crowd of supporters. "This is about standing up to corruption and abuse of power wherever it exists. And we're not going to stop until we see real, lasting change." The roar of the crowd was deafening, a testament to the power of a community united in its pursuit of justice. Grace knew that the road ahead would be long and arduous, but she was more determined than ever to see this through to the end. The final showdown in the courtroom was a dramatic and hard-fought battle, with both sides pulling out all the stops. The HOA and the county auditor's office threw every legal tactic they could muster, desperately trying to bury the damning evidence and discredit the witnesses. But Grace and Michael, backed by a team of determined and tenacious lawyers, refused to be intimidated. They stood their ground, meticulously presenting their case and exposing the depth of the corruption that had plagued their community for far too long. As the trial progressed, the public scrutiny only intensified. The media coverage was relentless, with outlets from across the country tuning in to follow the dramatic proceedings. Grace and Michael became the face of a larger movement, inspiring communities nationwide to stand up against the abuse of power by HOAs and local government officials. In the end, the verdict was a resounding victory for the residents. The judge, swayed by the overwhelming evidence, delivered a scathing ruling that condemned the HOA's actions and ordered the restoration of Grace's access code. But the triumph went far beyond that. The court also imposed hefty fines and sanctions on the HOA, the county auditor's office, and the individuals involved in the corruption. As the gavel fell, a thunderous cheer erupted from the courtroom, where the community members had gathered to witness the historic moment. Grace and Michael embraced, tears of joy streaming down their faces. "We did it," Grace whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "We finally did it." Michael held her tight, a proud smile spreading across his face. "I never doubted you for a second, my love. You're a force to be reckoned with." In the days that followed, the news of the victory spread like wildfire, inspiring similar battles against HOA corruption in communities across the country. Grace and Michael found themselves at the forefront of a growing movement, their story a beacon of hope for those who had long suffered under the tyranny of unaccountable homeowners associations. As they stood on the steps of the courthouse, surrounded by their grateful neighbors, Grace knew that this was just the beginning. The fight for justice and accountability would continue, but she was more than ready to take it on, fueled by the unwavering determination and resilience of her community. "This is only the start," she declared, her voice carrying through the throng of supporters. "Together, we will create a better future, one where the voices of the people are heard and the abuses of power are exposed and crushed." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause, a testament to the power of a community united in its pursuit of a better tomorrow.